Can your dog catch a cold? Let's bark about it. Welcome back to Alpha Paw, your destination for everything dog. I'm Bernie Zilio, and I'm on a personal mission to answer every doggone question you have ever had about your fur babies. And today we're talking about whether or not your dog can catch a cold and what to do about it. Fortunately, we have an expert with us today, Dr. Ross Bernstein. Dr. Ross is a seasoned veterinary professional and pet care expert. He earned his doctorate degree in veterinary medicine at UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, and his work has been featured in several industry-leading publications, including the Journal of Veterinary Surgery. He is our go-to vet for everything we want and need to know about our fur babies. So welcome back to Alpha Pod, Dr. Ross.
Hey, Bernie. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Okay, so today's topic is, can dogs catch colds? So we're going to start out very plain and simple. Dr. Ross, can dogs catch colds?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what your definition of a cold is. In people, we call it the common cold. So I think certainly dogs, yeah, they can get upper respiratory infections. Can they just catch a cold from being outside in cold weather? Not really. But and I mean, that's like a whole different conversation, I think. But yeah, there's definitely contagious upper respiratory infections in dogs that they can catch from other dogs.
Okay, so an upper respiratory infection would be considered a cold in this case?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that common?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say for me, it's not the most, I do a lot of surgery, so it's not the most common thing I see, but yeah, a lot of dogs definitely get sick. Some of the more common upper respiratory infections that we see there's one called kennel cough, which is it's an umbrella term for a whole. It has many names, but it's a complex. So it's the canine upper respiratory disease complex. So there can be many different bacteria or sometimes even viruses that are involved in causing that infection. Some other upper respiratory, I mean, it can be bacterial, viral, fungal, protozoal, all sorts of upper respiratory stuff.
Wow, I had no idea. I really just thought, like, if your dog's kind of feeling, under the weather, see if their nose is wet, like, I don't know what I'm talking about. So it's helpful that you're here telling us what to look out for. Now, what exactly do colds look like in our dogs? Like, what kind of symptoms would they display?
Yeah, they can have some of the similar signs that you would see in us. So they can have a runny nose or discharge from the nose, whether or not that's clear or mucopurulent. They can have watery eyes or runny eyes. They can be coughing. They can be sneezing. Sometimes they're even lethargic or have a decreased appetite. So those are some of the things that can lead you on to think that they have an upper respiratory infection.
Interesting. I know we've spoken about this before, that one symptom that your dog may be displaying, you should not just like go running wild and make assumptions that he or she might be sick. Because, for example, you mentioned like a runny nose, like dogs' noses are always wet. So I guess the key is to look out for multiple symptoms or symptoms that last multiple days before we self-diagnose, which we hate doing.
Yeah, I would say it's a change from what's normal in your dog. So if you know that your dog's nose is always wet, and then all of a sudden one day it's dry and they're coughing also and not wanting to eat and not wanting to do their normal stuff, then yeah, probably something's going on. If your dog's nose is always wet and then it's wet, I mean, maybe there's not something going on. So it's always something to talk with your vet about and pay close attention to your dog to know what's normal for your dog and what's not.
Okay, good to know, because my dog Pod's snoot is always wet. And I was like, oh, should I be worried? But no, he's good.
I would say it's not normal if the stuff coming out of their nose is yellow or green or
Right.
brown. Clear can be normal.
Okay, we're clear. We're good. We're in the clear because it's clear. Okay. Moving on. How do dogs even get colds? And I know this might be a stupid question, but I see it a lot on the internet. Can humans transmit their colds to their dogs?
Most dogs are going to catch colds not from being outside in cold weather, and I think that goes the same for people, but dogs get it from nose to nose contact.
Oh,
So
that is so cute.
it's pretty much where how their mucous membranes will touch. So
Okay.
nose to nose contact, and that can happen at dog parks, boarding facilities, groomers. Hopefully it's not happening at your vet hospital, because we have protocols in place to keep all the animals separate. But really, if your dog is getting nose to nose contact with dogs he doesn't or she doesn't know, or you don't know if they're fully vaccinated or what their health status is, then there's a chance that they can contract something contagious. And if it's nose to nose, then it can be a respiratory infection. Now, can
Okay.
people give their dogs respiratory infections? I think theoretically it's possible. We talked about this in an episode about COVID-19, and theoretically it's possible. Again, there was about influenza or the flu, and again, it's theoretically possible that if a person has the flu, they can give it to their dogs. There was a whole long list of what species can contract the influenza virus from people, and dogs were on the list, but it's super, super rare and very unlikely. And there is a specific canine influenza strain, and there are outbreaks every now and then. I think the one that's coming to mind was in San Francisco a couple of years back. But there is a vaccine for canine influenza. There's a vaccine for Bordetella. There's a vaccine for distemper virus. So those are some of the more common respiratory infections that we can at least vaccinate for.
For sure. And it's comforting because a lot of those are pretty much mandatory. I mean, I think it depends on the state that you live in, but it's, as a pet parent, comforting to know that our dogs get vaccinated, hopefully as young as possible, for a lot of these viruses and bacteria infections. So I'm grateful to know that. Now, how can we protect our dogs from getting colds?
Yeah, so one of the biggest ways to protect them is preventative care. So with the vaccinations, and not all the time they're going to completely prevent your dog from getting that respiratory infection, but they can lessen the severity and lessen the extent of the disease process. So that's one big way. Another way is, this is going to sound terrible, but limiting their time at the dog park or limiting their time at boarding facilities. You can't like completely change your life and don't let them ever interact with other dogs, but like that's how they're going to get a contagious virus, is if they're not playing with other dogs they don't know. Now, I mean, that's kind of unrealistic to say that, but that is how you can prevent them from getting contagious respiratory infections. So dog parks are a big one. Boarding facilities, groomers, boarding places.
So you mentioned the dog park. A certain someone is here, so I'm not trying to scream the word. And I just, as an observer, I notice obviously if there's like a water bowl or water fountain, that all the dogs share this water. And I know they're animals and they're not people, but I'm just like, how can this be sanitary? Like, can they get each other sick via drinking out of the same water bowl?
Yeah, they can. It's not going to be a respiratory infection if that's what you're wondering. Because if they're drinking out of water, that's going to be something that goes then down their digestive tract. And so like if one of them stepped in feces and then that gets in the water and then they eat that, then there's all of those fecal oral pathogens like Giardia and hookworms, roundworms, all that stuff. If their mucous membranes touch or nose to nose, really, for the respiratory pathogens. And I know it's kind of gross that they can all stick their faces in the same water bowl and they get super slobbery, but generally, like if all the dogs are healthy, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, well, that's awesome to know. And I'm so grateful once again for you, Dr. Ross, and so thankful for all of this sick info about how to prevent our dogs from getting sick. And if you guys have any more questions for Dr. Ross or myself, go ahead and drop them down in the comment section below. Again, I'm Bernie Zilio, and this is Alpha Paw. Be sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single doggone episode, and we'll see you guys next time.